Imagine a city brimming with vast riches, a place filled with such bounty that its paths are lined with fruit trees of all kinds. There are figs and pomegranates, walnuts and almonds, apples and peaches. You'd pull up a handful of greens from the earth and flakes of gold would fall from their roots. The stones of the city were inlaid with sapphires. The land was so abundant that even a falcon flying overhead with its razor-sharp eyesight could see the falcon living below because of the massive foliage of the trees above the land. Now the place was overflowing with substance and riches, a land of plenty. And this land, our rabbis teach, was Sodom. That's right, my friends, it was Sodom, the notorious society that was doomed, burned to a crisp by God, who couldn't even find 10 righteous people in the place worthy of saving. This absolutely magnificent place, this wondrous land. Why? How could this happen, and what can we learn? Now, according to our tradition, it wasn't the city's wealth that caused their downfall. After all, in the rabbis' eyes, it was God who blessed them with such fortunes in the first place. The sin was how the people of Sodom responded to their good fortune. They became selfish and greedy. They forgot how to share. Our Midrash says that the people of Sodom complained, "We live in peace and in plenty. Food can be mined from our land along with gold and silver, precious stones and pearls. What need have we to look after strangers who come only to deprive us? Let us see to it that the duty of welcoming the stranger be forgotten in this place." Outsiders were seen as a threat. Legend has it that the Sodomites proclaimed that anyone who sustains a stranger with a morsel of bread is to be burned alive. It's said that in Sodom, if someone needed help, they would make the person lie down on a bed. If they were too short for the bed, they would stretch them until they fit. And if they were too tall, they'd cut off their legs. So everything had to conform to their way, on their terms, in their city. The rabbis teach that this was the sin of Sodom, not sexual immorality. The sin really was cruelty and selfishness, the absolute refusal to care for the vulnerable, to welcome the stranger, to share what they had with those in need, as we are commanded to do. Now I want to share another scene from the very same parsha, our parsha this week. I want you to picture Abraham sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. It is scorching, the kind of Middle Eastern heat that feels like you are literally roasting in an oven. Abraham is recovering from his self-inflicted circumcision just 3 days before. He is in pain. He is elderly, and he really should be lying down. But his tent was different. It was open on all 4 sides, north, south, east, and west, so that no matter which direction a traveler approached from, they would see an entrance and they would know that they were welcome. On this particular day, in the heat, in this pain, Abraham looks up and sees 3 figures in the distance, strangers. He doesn't know who they are or where they're from. He doesn't stop to calculate whether they're a threat or whether he has enough to offer them. He gets up and he runs. This old guy, recovering from a highly sensitive surgery in the blazing heat, he runs to greet them. He bows to the ground. "My lords," he says, "if I have found favor in your eyes, do not pass by your servant. Let me bring water to wash your feet and rest under this tree." And then Abraham doesn't just offer them a snack or grab some olives from the pantry. He runs over to Sarah and says, "Quick, 3 measures of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." He runs to his herd, he selects the most beautiful calf, and he gives it to a servant to prepare. He brings them curds and milk. He stands by them under the tree while they eat to make sure that they have everything they need. This is radical hospitality. This is what it means to live with your tent open on all sides, even when things are hard, even when you're hurting. Even when it would be so much easier to just close up those flaps and rest. And this is the opposite of Sodom. The contrast couldn't be more stark. Sodom, with all its wealth, closed its doors and said, "Mine." And Abraham, with his modest tent, in pain, exhausted, flung every entrance wide and said, "You are welcome." Bless you. Extra blessings from a rabbi. Now, I'm sharing these snippets of our parsha tonight because we are living in a moment when it would be very, very easy to become a little bit like Sodom and to close our doors, to say us and them, to retreat from a world that feels increasingly hostile and polarized. Just this past week, New York City, one of the most Jewish cities in America, elected a mayor who is explicitly anti-Zionist, who's called for cutting ties with Israel, who's aligned himself with movements that seek to legitimize the Jewish state, and also a candidate who's inspiring and has promised to do a lot of good for the people in his city. In the days leading up to and after the election, I have heard from many of you. The exhaustion, the frustration, the disappointment, the anger, the fear, the temptation to just withdraw, to stop engaging, to close the tent flaps and just wait and pray for the storm to pass. And I get it, I really do. When the world feels like it's closing its doors to us, when leaders get elected who don't share our values, who make us worry for our futures, when family dinners can feel like minefields and social media feels toxic, the instinct is to protect ourselves and to circle our wagons, to retreat here into our own communities where everybody thinks like we do. But that's Sodom's way, and we are children of Abraham. After the election this week, the Union for Reform Judaism put out a statement that I think captures what Abraham's open tent means for us right now. They wrote about democracy requiring our participation even when the outcomes disappoint us. And they reminded us that retreating from civic life when things don't go our way isn't just bad for democracy, it's also bad for our souls. Because here's the thing, Abraham's tent wasn't open on all four sides only when the weather was nice. It wasn't open only when the guests were people that he agreed with. It was open in that scorching heat. It was open when he was suffering. It was open even when, especially when, it would have been easier just to close it. So what does that mean for us today, now, in this moment? It means that we don't unfriend people on Facebook because they would have voted differently than we would have had we been there. We don't stop talking to our family members who see the world differently than we do. And it means that when Thanksgiving rolls around in just a couple of weeks, we sit around those tables with people who may hold different viewpoints, and we figure out how we stay in relationship even when things are uncomfortable. And I know some of you are dreading some of those conversations, but this is the Jewish thing to do. And honestly, over the last few years, we have all had a lot of practice. This is Abraham's way, to welcome when it's hard, to offer hospitality, even when it hurts sometimes. It also means staying engaged in our communities. In Detroit, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, we show up to school board meetings and city council sessions. We continue our interfaith partnerships, even when they feel more complicated than they used to. We knock on doors, we talk to our neighbors, and we participate in the messy and difficult work of democracy. I am reminded of something Senator Carl Levin of blessed memory once told a group of teens when I was with them lobbying in DC a number of years ago. He said that his work in civil service was an absolute direct expression of his Judaism, that working to change the world and make it better, knocking on doors and talking to people, that was him, praying with his feet, the way he was taught to practice by his father before him. And that's what we're called to do, to pray with our feet, to keep our tent open even when the wind is blowing really hard against it. And I also want to talk about another tangible thing we can do right now, something concrete that will help us and our children navigate these challenging times with wisdom and strength and Jewish grounding. I want you all to come to Israel with us. I want you to send your kids and your grandkids. Our adult trip is leaving, please Delta, in a couple of days. But we're launching recruitment next week for our teen mission this summer, after a long 4-year hiatus. We're planning our family mission for next winter, and we are already bursting at the seams with folks who cannot wait to put their feet on the ground, put that shawarma in their mouths, to be moved, to learn, to hike, to bear witness to the horrors of the last few years. And I want to be clear about why it matters so much right now. When we travel, when we take or send our children or grandchildren to Israel, we are not just taking them on a vacation. We are giving them something precious and essential, a deep, embodied understanding of what Israel means to us as Jews. We're connecting them to their heritage, to each other, to their clergy, to their community. We are giving them an incredibly strong foundation from which to build. And when they come back, when they return to their schools and their college campuses and their dinner tables and their voting booths, they will be informed, smart, and Jewishly engaged. They'll be able to hold nuanced conversations about our sacred land. They'll understand why it matters, and they'll be equipped to navigate these polarizing times with knowledge and confidence and pride. And this is how we build the next generation of Jews who know how to keep their tents wide open, who know how to stay engaged even when things are challenging, and who know how to be both proud of who they are and also welcoming to others. The end of the Sodom story is devastating. The city's destroyed, everything burns. This land that was once overflowing with abundance becomes a wasteland. But you know what survives? Abraham's tent and Abraham's legacy, that legacy of radical welcome, of refusing to close our own doors, that survives. It survives through us. And so yes, there will be elections that disappoint us. There will be leaders who do not share our values. There will be Thanksgiving dinners that feel really, really hard. And there will be moments when we want to run and hide. But we will not, because we are the people of Abraham and Sarah. We show up, we engage, and we are going to pray not only with our hearts and voices and our minds, but like Heschel, like Carl Levin, we're going to pray with our feet too. So join us in Israel. Keep your hearts wide open. Keep your chin up. And remember, nothing heals a wounded soul like a fresh, hot falafel from a taxi stand in Jerusalem. Shabbat shalom.